a time period in which a number of Black poets, artists, dramatists, writers, and musicians created very politically motivated work centering Black identity and agency. It was concurrent with and heavily inspired by the Black Power movement, though the Black arts movement cannot be fully understood without consideration of the civil rights movement. Fight for equality and equity for Black Americans, the civil rights movement as we know it in the modern day was at its peak from 1950 through 1970. It ideologically centered the social, political, and legal liberation and elevation of Black Americans, using nonviolent tactics such as boycott, protest, and legal battles to inch forward against constant anti-Blackness. It is through this movement that the legal end of segregation came about, as well as the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to better safeguard the right of Black Americans to vote. One notable figure in this, and a particularly important one for the beginning of the Black arts movement, was Malcolm X. He was a prominent advocate for Black nationalism and was more militant in his tactics compared to Martin Luther King Jr. His influence empowering Black Americans to advocate for themselves and one another emphasized Black community and self-organization. Tragically, Malcolm X was assassinated in Harlem, New York in 1965. He was 39 years old. The Black nationalist followers of Malcolm X largely organized themselves into two groups following this. One group focused on political advocacy, best embodied by the Black Power movement and the Black Panthers. The other group, the cultural nationalists, emphasized Black history, culture, and art. This, with the founding of Amiri Baraka's Black Arts Repertory Theater, is largely recognized as the inception of the Black arts movement.
Did Malcolm X's death signify the end of Black power in the United States? Of course not. Rather, it served as a catalyst for a new beginning, the Black arts movement. Amiri Baraka, the father of the Black arts movement, started the movement with A Poem for Black Hearts, which gained national attention following the death of Malcolm X. From there, other prominent literary figures, such as Nikki Giovanni and Audre Lorde, published their own poetic works as a contribution to the movement. The poetic medium was heavily impacted by the Black arts movement. Rather than sticking to traditional conventions of the medium, these artists managed to rewrite the poetic genre with unconventional approaches to literature that the literary canon hadn't seen before. For example, in this excerpt from Nikki Giovanni's Mothers, we can see a lack of punctuation and capitalization used as a stylistic device. This was reminiscent of the movement. Moreover, this poem manages to incorporate a poem within a poem, one of the many unconventional approaches to poetry that these artists contributed to the medium. In addition to new poetic techniques, the Black arts movement also signaled the creation of an entirely new poetic genre. The chorea poem, as invented by Shange, manages to blend poetry, dance, music, and drama into a beautiful, multifaceted approach to literature and performance. Shange's chorea poem, For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, is one of the most celebrated works of the movement. In 1969, Maya Angelou published her autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which described her experiences with racism and poverty as a Black girl in the 1930s. In titling her memoir, Angelou drew inspiration from Paul Laurence Dunbar's poem Sympathy, published in 1899. The image of a caged bird represents the entrapment of African Americans in a society that constantly oppressed and discriminated. Like so many other female poets of the Black arts movement, Angelou's work not only touched upon Black power, but also feminist issues. Angelou wrote her poem, Phenomenal Woman, as an exclamation of pride. Pride in being a woman, pride in being African American. In a society that constantly oppressed her on the basis of race and gender, Phenomenal Woman sent the message that Angelou loved who she was. In addition to race and feminist issues, the Black arts movement also addressed LGBTQ issues in the United States. Audre Lorde, a Black lesbian poet of the movement, explored intersectional oppression in her poetry collections, Cable to Rage and From a Land Where Other People Live, where she describes her experiences being a Black lesbian in the United States.
The next topic will be the impact of the Black arts movement. And here is an attached photo of a community art center in Atlanta. Now, for many, the Black Arts movement was considered controversial, even long after the fact. But despite accusations that the movement was exclusive to any other minorities, many of these very same minority groups later acknowledged the debt they owed to the Black Arts movement. In many ways, it paved the way for others to follow and laid out an appropriate outline. Examples of this would be the LGBTQ community and feminism. The influence on the arts and perceptions toward social justice was revolutionary and cannot be understated. Where society would be now without the movement is a question honestly best left unanswered. At the time of the Black Arts movement, the literary canon, as well as most artistic canons, were largely lacking in any form of diversity. The perspectives were largely white at the time, and very little social attention was directed towards Black voices. But then, the movement helped spur a countering response and elevated these valuable voices into the public eye. Suddenly, these voices seeped into common culture, and it steadily became less of an underground endeavor. And here attached are a few famous musicians and actors of the Black Arts movement. Now, looking retrospectively, curator Thelma Golden coined the term post-Black art to describe the attitudes of contemporary artists influenced by the Black Arts movement who did not wish to be known as Black artists. They simultaneously tackled the complexities of what Blackness meant and delved into a future of cultural discovery and self-analysis.